I froze the moment my grandmother's voice cut through the Thanksgiving chatter, sharp as a broken wine glass. "Do you know what you've done, Emily?" she asked, her gaze boring into mine like a hawk watching prey. The room went still, the only sound the faint ticking of the antique clock above the fireplace. Pumpkin pie trembled in my hand, untouched, as my mind raced, trying to catch up with her words. I had just returned from a long flight overseas, carrying the subtle exhaustion of someone who had spent years building her life from scratch. Yet here I was, facing an accusation I didn't even understand. "Grandma. I don't know what you mean," I stammered, my voice small, though I tried to sound steady. Across the table, my parents exchanged uneasy glances. My younger brother, Jason, pushed his plate back slightly, sensing the storm before it even arrived. The tension hung thick, a tangible force pressing down on all of us. "My house, Emily. The one I entrusted you with 3 years ago," she said, lifting a photograph from her handbag and sliding it across the table. I hesitated before looking down. In the picture, standing proudly in front of a sprawling lakeside mansion, were my name and face, or what I thought was mine, smiling as though nothing could go wrong. I blinked. This wasn't mine. I'd never set foot in that house, had never even held the keys. My heart thudded painfully against my ribcage as the reality sank in. I had been scraping by for months, bouncing between jobs and friends' couches. This house, this life, had been stolen before I even knew it existed. "Emily, speak," my grandmother commanded, her tone deadly calm. I don't understand," I whispered. "I've never owned that house." A strange, cold laughter escaped her lips. "Never? Are you certain? Perhaps you've conveniently forgotten." My mother, Sandra, chimed in quickly, trying to mediate. "Dorothy, maybe she's just tired. Traveling's stressful." "Quiet." My grandmother's voice slashed through the room. Every eye fixed on me, waiting, judging, while I felt paralyzed. Then the truth began to unravel, layer by cruel layer. My brother Jason shifted nervously. "Mom. Dad, what is she talking about?" My father, Michael, avoided my gaze. His face tightened, as if the truth was a weight too heavy to carry. "Emily, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, voice trembling now. "You handed my house to whom?" "Ashley." My sister's name burned in my mind. The last piece of the puzzle clicked. The woman I had grown up loving, the one I shared birthday cakes with, had taken my life, my property, while I fought to survive, unnoticed and unheard. Ashley's lips parted, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Emily, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, my voice hardening, though my body shook. "Because from where I stand, it looks like you took everything that should have been mine." The room pulsed with silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums and leaves your stomach in knots. My grandmother leaned back in her chair, her eyes calculating, every muscle taut. "Emily, you've been misled. And tonight, we reveal the truth. All of it." I swallowed hard, unsure whether to cry or fight. Years of hardship, humiliation, and betrayal surged through me, threatening to consume every ounce of composure I had left. But a spark of resolve ignited. No longer the timid girl who tolerated life's unfairness, I would face this head-on. "Then tell me everything," I said, voice stronger now, each word deliberate. "I'm ready to hear the truth, no matter how much it hurts." And in that moment, the game began. My grandmother's cane tapped rhythmically against the hardwood floor as she called a number on her phone. A few tense seconds later, a man entered, tall, precise, exuding authority. Mr. Whitman, her attorney, carried a briefcase that seemed to weigh as much as the secrets it contained. He set the case on the table with a measured thud. "Mrs. Hanson instructed me to bring these documents, and we are to review them tonight. Every single detail." The cold, deliberate air that followed left me trembling, not from fear, but anticipation. The stage was set. Every lie, every betrayal, every act of deception that had robbed me of my home, my career, my dignity, would be exposed. I looked around at my family, the ones who should have protected me, and for the first time, I saw them as strangers. Shadows of people I had trusted, now revealed in their truest forms. A shiver ran down my spine. This Thanksgiving would not be about turkey or pumpkin pie. It would be a reckoning. And I, Emily Carter, was ready. The moment Mr. Whitman opened his briefcase, a storm seemed to stir in the room. Folders, thick and intimidating, spilled onto the mahogany table, each one labeled with meticulous precision, deeds, affidavits, notarized letters, and emails that could shatter reputations. My heart pounded against my chest like a drum of impending doom. Emily, Mr. Whitman began, his voice calm but icy, these documents trace the ownership of the property in question. Everything from the original purchase to transfers of interest. You may want to sit. I remained standing. Sitting felt like surrender. My grandmother's eyes never left me, sharp as steel, watching, waiting. I picked up the first folder, my fingers trembling as I flipped through pages filled with signatures I didn't recognize, dates that didn't match any memory I had, and transactions that made my blood run cold. Ashley's name appeared repeatedly, sometimes as a beneficiary, sometimes as the sole owner. I felt like the floor had dropped from beneath me. Emily, Ashley's voice came, soft but tense, I can explain. No, Ashley, I cut her off, voice stronger than I expected. You don't get to explain. Not yet. The truth will speak for itself. My grandmother raised an eyebrow, a silent signal to continue. Mr. Whitman began walking us through the papers methodically, each revelation striking like a hammer. This document, he said, pointing to a notarized transfer from 3 years ago, shows ownership transferred to Miss Ashley Carter, effective immediately. However, he paused, letting the weight of his words settle. There are inconsistencies. Witness signatures that don't match, dates that contradict other official filings, and email records indicating that Miss Emily Carter should have been the rightful owner all along. I stared at the folder as if it might magically rewrite the past. My hand shook. Months of financial struggle, of renting cramped apartments, of being constantly overlooked, all flashed before my eyes. All the while, Ashley had lived comfortably in what should have been mine. Ashley's face drained of color. Emily, you don't understand. It was an accident. I thought Grandma had authorized. Accident? I echoed, my voice rising. You call stealing my life an accident? Jason, my brother, finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Ashley, you really did this? Ashley opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no words that could undo the years of deception. The tension thickened, the air crackling with unspoken truths. My grandmother's cane tapped slowly against the floor again, a metronome to our unraveling family. Miss Carter, she said, her tone calm but merciless, the evidence is here. It is irrefutable. But you must also understand the motive behind the crime, the why. Only then will the full picture emerge. I swallowed hard. I was ready for the why, even if it hurt more than I could imagine. Mr. Whitman pulled another folder from the briefcase. Emails and recorded conversations indicate that Miss Ashley Carter not only assumed ownership but also attempted to conceal the transfer. She contacted lawyers, financial advisors, and even attempted to mislead the property tax office. Every step shows deliberate intent to exclude Miss Emily Carter. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Emily, please. I didn't know what else to do. You were gone for so long, and I thought I was protecting the family. Protecting the family? I snapped. From what? From me. From the truth. The room fell silent again, heavier than before. My grandmother's face softened just slightly, but the fire in her eyes remained. She gestured to Mr. Whitman, who continued, his voice calm but devastating. Further investigation revealed a hidden clause in the original ownership documents. While the house was legally transferred to Miss Ashley Carter, the clause stipulates that any attempt to claim ownership without the rightful consent of Miss Emily Carter renders the transfer null and void. My heart skipped a beat. A spark of hope ignited. Justice was not yet lost. Ashley's face paled completely. No, that can't be true. Yes, it is true, Mr. Whitman confirmed. And furthermore, emails dated a month prior indicate that Ashley attempted to falsify consent forms, which constitutes fraud under state law. The room seemed to tilt, my grandmother's clock ticking louder than ever, marking each second of the revelation. My anger, which had been a slow burn, now erupted like wildfire. All those years of struggle, all the nights I cried in silence, all the moments I questioned my own worth, they had been stolen, and now the truth had finally arrived. I looked at Ashley, standing there, defenseless and broken. I realized something profound in that moment: revenge would not heal the past. But truth. Truth had power. And tonight, truth would win. My grandmother leaned forward, eyes piercing. Emily, this is your moment. Decide how you will claim what is rightfully yours. Do it wisely. Do it boldly. I nodded, feeling a surge of strength I hadn't known existed. This wasn't just about a house anymore, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and proving that betrayal, no matter how long it hides, can never win against courage. And as Ashley sank into her chair, finally facing the consequences of her actions, I realized, the battle had only just begun. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, a place where whispers carried like lightning before a storm. Reporters huddled along the back wall, pens poised, cameras ready, eyes hungry for the drama that had been brewing for months. But none of that mattered to me. All that mattered was the truth, and finally, tonight, it would be revealed. Ashley sat across from me, pale and rigid, a fragile mask of composure barely hiding her guilt. Her lawyer whispered urgent words into her ear, but she didn't hear them. Her eyes were fixed on me, wide and fearful, as if I were some unstoppable force she had never anticipated. The judge, a tall woman with a sharp gaze that could cut steel, called the court to order. Her gavel struck the polished desk with authority, sending an echo through the room that made my chest tighten with anticipation. Miss Emily Carter, she said, her voice firm yet fair, we will hear the case regarding the disputed property. You may proceed. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every year, every hardship, every stolen moment pressing on me. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady, I did not want it to come to this. I wished for family unity. But when my own sister tried to take my home through deceit, I realized the only way to protect what is rightfully mine is to show the truth. I turned to Mr. Whitman, who nodded. He began presenting the evidence meticulously, piece by piece. The notarized documents, the emails, the recordings, all were laid bare for everyone to see. Your Honor, he said, pointing to a sequence of emails, these communications show clear intent to deceive, to claim ownership without rightful consent. Miss Ashley Carter attempted to falsify forms and mislead officials. Legally, this constitutes fraud and renders any claim null and void. Ashley's face went ashen. She opened her mouth to protest, but the evidence spoke louder than her words. The judge examined the documents closely. Miss Carter, she said, her voice now cold, do you deny these records? Ashley stammered, It was. I didn't mean. You didn't mean? The judge repeated sharply. Intent is irrelevant when actions are deliberate and documented. The law does not excuse deception. Do you have anything else to present that contradicts this evidence? Silence filled the room. Even the reporters held their breath. I felt a rush of vindication but tried to stay composed. This wasn't about gloating, it was about justice. I glanced at my grandmother, who was sitting quietly, a small smile of pride playing on her lips. Her cane tapped the floor once, soft but deliberate, as if to say, the right path is yours to claim. Then, in a twist that even Ashley hadn't anticipated, Mr. Whitman revealed the hidden clause in the original ownership documents. Your Honor, he said, there is a legal clause specifying that any transfer without the consent of Miss Emily Carter is invalid. Therefore, the property remains rightfully hers. Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked as though the floor had vanished beneath her feet. The judge leaned back, considering everything carefully. This court finds that the attempted transfer was indeed fraudulent, and Miss Emily Carter is the rightful owner of the property. Any actions taken to alter this ownership without her consent are null and void. The property is hereby returned to her. A wave of relief and triumph surged through me, stronger than any I had ever felt. My hands trembled as the reality sank in. The house, my home, my sanctuary, was finally mine, legally, unshakably mine. Ashley slumped back in her chair, utterly defeated. Her lawyer whispered frantically, but the fight was over. There was no argument, no loophole, no escape. As the gavel struck again, signaling the end of the trial, I realized something profound. Justice wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about reclaiming respect, dignity, and the right to stand tall despite betrayal. After the courtroom emptied, I stood on the steps, feeling the winter air brush against my face. Reporters tried to get a statement, cameras flashing relentlessly, but I only smiled softly. I had my home back, yes, but more importantly, I had my power, my truth, and the knowledge that no deception, no matter how clever, could ever defeat honesty and perseverance. My grandmother joined me, her arm brushing mine. You did well, Emily, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Not just because you won the house, but because you never lost yourself. I nodded, feeling a tear slip down my cheek. Victory had never felt so bittersweet. Ashley's betrayal had cut deep, but the triumph of truth had healed something far greater than I had expected. And as I looked up at the house that had been mine all along, I realized the journey was far from over. There would be repairs, renovations, and the challenge of reclaiming memories lost to deceit. But for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. I had faced lies, betrayal, and fear, and emerged stronger. And now, standing in the crisp air of justice, I knew that nothing, not even family betrayal, could ever take away what was truly mine. The story wasn't just about a house. It was about courage, resilience, and the undeniable power of truth. And as the sun set over my reclaimed home, I smiled, knowing this chapter had ended, but my life, finally, had just begun. The courtroom drama was over, but the ripple effects were only just beginning. Life, as I soon realized, doesn't pause for victories, it simply moves forward, forcing us to decide who we are in its wake. In the days following the trial, news outlets broadcasted the story of the house dispute that shook a family. Interviews, social media posts, and online articles portrayed me as the courageous sister who reclaimed her home from deceit. But to me, it was never about the headlines, it was about reclaiming the sanctuary that held my memories, my dreams, and my identity. Ashley disappeared from the public eye. Friends and neighbors whispered about her, some sympathetic, some critical, but none could ignore the sting of betrayal. I didn't gloat, though. Gloating would have cheapened the victory. I had learned long ago that revenge leaves scars deeper than any theft. The house, once a battlefield of emotions and conflicts, slowly began to transform back into a home. Every corner, every wall, every floorboard held echoes of the struggle, yet also the promise of renewal. I spent days sorting through belongings, restoring damaged spaces, and reclaiming the heart of my sanctuary. Grandma became my anchor through it all. She insisted on little rituals, morning tea on the porch, evening walks through the garden, that reminded me life had beauty even in the aftermath of betrayal. This house, she said softly one evening, is more than walls and roofs. It's proof that truth and love endure, even when people fail us. Friends who had stood by me through the turmoil were now my constant companions. Together, we celebrated small victories, repainting a room, planting flowers, or simply laughing in spaces that had once echoed with tension. Their support reminded me that family isn't always by blood, it's by loyalty, care, and the willingness to stand when others falter. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, I found a letter I had written to myself years ago, long before the betrayal. In it, I promised that no one could take away my dreams or my peace. Holding it in my hands, I realized that the true victory had never been about the house, it had always been about keeping that promise, about never surrendering to fear or deception. Even Ashley, in her absence, became a part of my growth. Her betrayal forced me to confront the harsh realities of trust and family, to strengthen my boundaries, and to recognize my own resilience. I didn't hate her, I simply understood that some people cannot give what we need. And that understanding, though painful, freed me from lingering resentment. Months passed, and the house blossomed with life once more. The garden flourished under Grandma's careful hands, the walls resonated with laughter, and the rooms held the warmth of belonging. Neighbors who once whispered about the dispute now came by to share stories, offer help, or simply enjoy the calm that had replaced chaos. Then came an unexpected twist, a package arrived with no return address. Inside, I found an envelope containing a handwritten note from Ashley. "I am sorry," it read. "I lost my way, and I understand the pain I caused. I cannot undo the past, but I hope you find peace. I am seeking help to be a better person. Ashley." For a moment, my heart wavered. Anger surged, memories of betrayal threatened to pull me back into old wounds, but I breathed deeply, and instead of responding with bitterness, I allowed a sense of closure to settle over me. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't for her, it was for me. It was the final act of reclaiming my peace, my power, and my home. That evening, I stood on the porch with Grandma, watching the sun sink behind the trees. The air was crisp, the garden smelled of roses and earth, and the house glowed warmly in the fading light. "Do you feel complete?" Grandma asked, her voice gentle, eyes twinkling with quiet wisdom. I nodded. "Yes," I said softly. "Not because the fight is over, but because I am no longer fighting myself. I've reclaimed more than a house. I've reclaimed my life, my strength, and my truth." And in that moment, I understood something profound: life will always present challenges, betrayals, and storms. But the courage to face them, the wisdom to endure, and the heart to forgive, these are what make us truly unstoppable. The house was mine, yes, but it had also become a symbol of resilience, hope, and transformation. Every brick, every window, every corner told a story, not just of betrayal, but of triumph. And as I stepped inside, the door closing gently behind me, I whispered to myself with quiet conviction. This is just the beginning. Because though one chapter had ended, the story of my life, filled with courage, love, and truth, was far from over. And for the first time in years, I felt the pure joy of knowing that nothing, not lies, not betrayal, not even the fiercest storms, could ever take away what was truly mine.